On behalf of the Diocesan Council, members of the Budget Committee, Assessment Coordinating Committee, and Mission Initiatives Committee are pleased to present this proposed 2021 diocesan budget. Our diocesan canons require that our resources be allocated in ways that are articulated in our mission strategy. The Diocese of Massachusetts adopted a new mission strategy in 2016. Its defining theme was embracing brave change. In 2020, brave change has embraced us in ways that we never anticipated. The coronavirus pandemic has brought unexpected challenges to the whole world. Massachusetts has been hard hit, and our churches have responded, quickly adapting their worship services and stepping up their efforts to help neighbors in need, even as financial challenges mounted. We have witnessed increasing violence directed at people of color and immigrants. Climate change continues to accelerate, demanding our attention and our action. In this context, this budget was created with much that is unknown, and with a need to maintain flexibility in our diocesan response to our congregations and communities.
The 2021 budget is shaped in response both to our mission strategy and to the challenges and uncertainties of these days. The Diocesan Council presents this proposed 2021 budget with the recognition that the coming months will demand flexibility, generosity, and sacrifice at every level of diocesan and congregational life. The Council has been supported in the development of this budget by its Budget Committee, Assessment Coordinating Committee, and the Mission Initiatives Committee, as well as by ongoing conversation with the bishops and diocesan staff. As we explore the proposed 2021 budget, there are several key elements to note.
Relief to congregations was the first and highest priority in forming this budget. Everybody involved in crafting the 2021 budget is keenly aware of the extraordinary stresses on congregations during the current crisis. For that reason, $600,000 is set aside for pandemic relief response to congregations. Approximately $135,000 of this money has been allocated by the Assessment Coordinating Committee in adjustments to the 2021 assessments. The remainder is set aside for adjustments to be made in 2021 as needs are identified by Diocesan Council. Since the early days of the pandemic, Diocesan Council has felt that a targeted response in support of congregations will be more effective than an across-the-board waiver. Council is gathering data through a pandemic impact survey of all congregations early in the fall. Based on this information, Council will determine its targeted response. In 2021, the budget assumes that substantial resources will be needed. Hence, the pandemic relief reserve is held back from assessment income in a similar fashion to the reserve for adjustments.
Those creating the budget have really tried to hold the line or reduce staff-related costs, such as compensation, benefits, and reimbursable expenses. Compensation for senior diocesan staff, bishops, canons, directors, and missioners is held at the 2020 level. The compensation of 2 staff members has been increased by the Bishop Diocesan to reflect additional responsibilities. Support staff will, however, receive a 1% increase in salary. So often, support staff have borne the brunt of church economizing, and we wanted to avoid that to the degree possible. The pandemic has caused us to rely far more on virtual rather than in-person gatherings. So the budget for reimbursable expenses have been reduced by 20%. An estimated increase in medical insurance premiums, originally projected at 8% by the Compensation and Benefits Committee, is fortunately coming in at just 4.5%, well below average.
We are blessed by the generosity of previous generations who have left bequests to the diocese. These endowment funds total approximately $74 million and yield income estimated at $2.9 million, the majority of which is restricted by terms established by the donors. These endowments are a tremendous ongoing resource for the mission of our diocese. Many of the endowments are owned by the Trustees of Donations, a separate organization charged with the stewardship of diocesan and parish resources, which sets the draw rate of 4%. Others, agency funds, are held by the diocese, which follows the recommended draw rate of the Trustees of Donations.
Included in our planning is a new focus on the annual fund drive, which will be critical support for the mission initiatives we undertake together. While a planned appeal in the spring of 2020 took a back seat to the emergency pandemic relief, a robust annual fund campaign is planned for this fall, with a dual focus on youth and young adult ministries and immigration and multicultural ministries. Crucial to this effect will be solicitation for the annual fund, not only through diocesan channels, but also through appeals in congregations of our diocese. We urge your support.
We will achieve some economy this year by a reduction in the assessment that the Episcopal Church is asking from our diocese. The assessment is 15% of the general operating income, is estimated for 2021 at $750,000. This figure is lower because it is based on 2018 income, the year that the congregational assessment formula in our diocese was lowered.
Some of the grant line items have been reduced in the 2021 budget. Diocesan Council has reallocated grant funds which were traditionally available to congregations in order to more substantially fund and target pandemic relief. As we move beyond these stressful times, Diocesan Council anticipates that they will be reviewing the congregational granting process and reestablishing these fundings. The 2021 budget calls for the continued funding of our Hispanic and African ministries, both critical to our mission strategy. The budget also funds our strategic curacies, so important to the continued mentoring of our newly ordained clergy.
Because the annual Spring Clergy Conference scheduled for May 2020 has been postponed until February 2021, and the planned two-day diocesan convention in Danvers has become an online gathering, prepaid deposits on those venues are being carried over, resulting in single-year savings in 2021.
A key part of our common life in our diocese is the support of congregations and programs in economically challenged communities, on campuses, and among neighbors in need. This year, the Mission Initiatives Committee, supported by 3 subcommittees, focused on supported congregations, parish community partnerships, and campus ministries. It has deepened relationships with the ministries we all support through the annual budget as well. The committee has focused not only on budget allocations, but on what other resources might be employed to help these ministries flourish and to promote goal setting and sustainability.
Newly funded in the 2021 budget is the work of our Diocesan Racial Justice Commission, a body appointed by our bishops to guide us through a racial audit of the structures of our diocesan life and to help us advocate systemic change in the Church and in our society. This work is an important goal articulated in the diocese mission strategy and becomes more urgent by the day. The funding for the Racial Justice Commission is taken from the John B. Coburn Fund, a bishop-directed endowment fund which brings resources to parish ministry. Also newly funded in the 2021 budget through the Coburn Fund is a greater emphasis on care of creation, another key plank of the mission strategy.
In mid-2020, RSM was engaged to provide managed information technology services for the diocesan and cathedral offices. This will help us to undertake a much-needed update to our systems so we will be better placed to serve congregations well. Along with IT, work related to finance, diocesan and parish property, human resources, and archives is often behind the scenes, but absolutely critical to support our more visible efforts to strengthen our common life. We continue to seek ways to provide expanded services to support the congregations of our diocese.
As in the 2020 budget, there is an expense line for funding depreciation of equipment and property. We estimate this at $331,000. After significant discussion by the Budget Committee, the full estimate is included here again. Each year, our auditors require that we take this depreciation into account. Our diocesan canons require that the annual budget have income at least as great as expenses. So including the depreciation amount provides for better alignment of budgeted and audited finances and complies with best practices for not-for-profit organizations.
The diocese budget reflects mission priorities and continues to respond to the urgent call for the diocese to reduce the budgetary burden on all parishes reflected in assessments and to operate more sustainably. The budget also reflects plans to support parishes, missions, etc. that have been financially impacted by the pandemic. And as anybody knows that has participated in establishing a parish or mission level budget, which is not conceptually different from setting a household budget, budgets exist in a tension between needs, desires, and resources, which are not infinite. So while the scale is admittedly different for the diocese, this year's budget exists in that same tension, which really is the challenge of finding a just way to live into the gospel through diocesan initiatives and assistance. The budgeting process necessarily involved proposed budgetary targets that exist in that ebb and flow of deliberations before becoming finalized. Targets set the process in motion and may be revisited, retargeted, increased, or decreased as the process unfolds and the realities of available resources are balanced. We believe that this tension, or this balance, has been achieved, and here's how. The Mission Initiatives Committee, or MIC, was expanded from its nascent core of a half a dozen dedicated volunteers over the last 2 years to an expanded committee of council with focused and dedicated subcommittees with enthusiasm and expertise in each of the 3 major areas of our mission initiatives: supported congregations, parish community partnerships, and campus and young adult ministries, thus expanding the touch points for diocesan advocacy for mission, increasing transparency of mission review, and further opening honest and earnest communications and relationship building. Diocesan Council has continued its commitment to reducing the budgetary footprint of the diocese this year by more than $100,000 and to assessment relief to congregations. Diocesan Council is keenly aware of the extraordinary stresses on congregations during this time of pandemic. For that reason, the 2021 budget includes a total of $600,000 for assessment relief to congregations and to other organizations within the diocese. The diocese listened. We heard from you, loud and clear, during the spring hearings and through other channels. The diocese responded with strength and sacrifice. The $600,000 in funding was assembled for this purpose from other grant pools. But take note, the Pandemic Impact Survey of all congregations that's due in November will provide important data for Council's decision-making. 50 responses have been received thus far, so don't forget to submit yours. Newly funded in the 2021 budget is the work of the Racial Justice Commission, appointed by our bishops to help reckon with the legacy of racism in our own history, guide us through a racial audit of the structures of our diocesan life, provide further resources for individual and communal engagement with anti-racism, and help us advocate systemic change in the Church and in our society. This is enormously important to the diocesan mission strategy, and through it we will have authentic and committed conversations about racism and other forms of repression. This has been enthusiastically supported by the trustees of the Bishop John E. Coburn Fund. The 2021 budget also addresses another key plank of the mission strategy. That is, meeting the need for a sustained conversation about faithful stewardship of our physical world, reducing carbon emissions, responding to the effects of climate change, and advocating for sound climate policy. Again, with the enthusiastic support of the trustees of the Bishop John B. Coburn Fund. One may have gained or been lent the impression that the diocesan budget was off target or perhaps not pointed sufficiently down the path of the mission strategy. To the contrary, our mission initiatives were reviewed through a transparent process, including meeting individually with each initiative and with presentations made by each initiative in a forum dedicated to each group. Diocesan Council came away impressed by the important work performed by each initiative and their focus on key areas of need in communities of color, immigrant populations, and with our youth. It is Council's earnest desire to make space for the seeding of new ministries across the diocese, and for smaller ministries to grow, and for all ministries hopefully to achieve a measure of self-sustainability over time, which will preserve and enhance the diocese's role as a catalyst of positive impact aligned with the mission strategy. Please note the following. Of the 24 mission initiatives, 17 are decidedly focused on immigrant communities, communities of color, and the homeless, receiving nearly $1.1 million in funding, or more than 75% of the mission initiative allocation. 7 mission initiatives budgets were increased over last year's budget. 6 were level funded and 11 reduced. But more importantly, half of the mission initiatives received their ask, or more than their ask, with most of the remainder within a few $1,000s of their ask. Mission initiatives remain 22% of the overall diocesan budget. All things considered, diocesan support for mission initiatives in key areas of need remains important, substantial, and targeted to key areas of need. Early in the budget process last spring, the Assessment Coordinating Committee, or ACC, initially asked for $180,000 for assessment adjustments in fiscal year 2021. The ACC reported that by early July, they had already had relief requests totaling just over $150,000 compared to just $35,000 at the same point in 2019 during the FY 2020 budget process. That $150,000 in requests was outside the ongoing COVID-19 relief fund requests that were occurring last spring. The total assessment adjustments granted in the 2020 budget year grew to over $75,000. Since then, additional requests came in after congregations formed their 2020 annual budgets. In response, the ACC recommended increasing the line amount in this 2021 budget to $280,000. As the pandemic continues to impact the financial stability of our congregations, an additional $325,000 was reserved, bringing the total available for assistance in the 2021 budget that we are considering today up to $600,000. Thank you for taking these remarks on our budget into consideration in your deliberations today. Take care.
On behalf of the Diocesan Council, the Budget Committee, the Mission Initiatives Committee, and the Assessments Coordinating Committee, I move that the 235th Annual Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of Massachusetts approve the budget of revenue and expenses for 2021 as summarized on page 12, including the individual parish and mission assessments and approved adjustments for 2021 listed on pages 17 through 22.